appropriate that we honor Caroline, Erica, Jamie, Sarah, Tiani, and Suki on their induction to the Cum Laude Society. Their academic record attests to their achievements. But I am also happy to be here because this occasion enables me to speak to the last group of students I taught, the class of 2012. To the other classes and many of the newer teachers, I am a name on a classroom door, and probably most of you aren't even aware of that. To the seniors, however, I am that teacher who will, years from now, probably be the cause of their nightmares. I had a dream last night that Mr. Schooley gave one of those unannounced quizzes and I hadn't done the reading. I keep seeing blank but numbered maps of Europe and can't remember where the dog is, let alone spell it. Or these words keep going through my head. The Treaty of Utrecht resolved the issues that caused the war and restored the balance of power. But seniors, we all came out of that course knowing with confidence two things: the fundamental principles of Machiavellianism and what Machiavelli meant by the good of the state. So let's review. What are the two fundamental principles of Machiavellianism? The good of the state is the supreme good, and the end justifies the means to the end. So let's review. For those of you who may not be familiar with Machiavelli, as are the seniors, here's some history. We need to go back 600 years to the Renaissance. Living in the Italian city of Florence, Niccolò Machiavelli was a 16th century scholar and diplomat who is best known for writing a little book called The Prince in 1513. In The Prince, Machiavelli observed that rulers, governments, and states act in their own interests, often without regard to moral and ethical principles in pursuing policies to achieve their goals. From this we get the word Machiavellian, one who uses any means, including dishonorable, to achieve one's ends. All of you ran into, and may have brushed on past, the concept of Machiavellianism earlier in the fall when you read and saw at Stratford The Merry Wives of Windsor. In Act 3, Scene 1, the host of the Garter Inn asks, "Am I politic? Am I subtle? Am I a Machiavel?" Machiavelli was what we would call today a political scientist. He observed and reported what he saw in how governments and leaders conduct themselves. In The Prince, he did not pass moral judgment on what he was seeing and reporting, but he did conclude that what he saw was universal and timeless because of human nature. No matter what values are held by a society in terms of what is right and wrong, good or bad, those values are pushed aside when they get in the way of interests and goals. But Machiavellianism is not limited to politics, business practices, historical figures, or Shakespearean references. We find it even in our own personal lives, only there it doesn't have a label. How many of us have ever lied to a parent, to a teacher, or a friend? Have you ever blamed someone else for something you did wrong? Have you ever faked being sick in order to stay home from school on the day of a big test? We know these things, doing these things is wrong, but we do them. Why? Because the end, staying home from school and getting more time to study for the test, justifies the means. Telling your mom you don't feel well when actually you do. Just as do governments and businesses, we sometimes put our interests above what we know to be the greater good. So how do I now connect Machiavellian mischief to cum laude and what we're about at Buffalo Seminary? The short answer to that question is very awkwardly, but I'll try. It all comes back to that greater good, a greater good by which we want to live and should live. This greater good is the sum of many parts. The motto of the Cum Laude Society recognizes three of those parts. They are moral excellence, justice, and honor. The society's motto expresses these words in Greek: arete, meaning moral excellence, dike, meaning justice, and time, meaning honor. When the Cum Laude Society was founded back in 1906, a liberal arts education in most colleges and universities included the classical languages, Latin and Greek, not as elective options, but as required studies. 100 years ago, students at SEM and most other American prep schools all took Latin. As they progressed through 4 years of the program, they would read in Latin works from Caesar, Ovid, and Virgil. If they took Greek, it would be classical Greek, the language of Homer, Sophocles, and Plato. And even if they didn't take Greek, they would be reading in their English classes, as are you, works such as Homer's Odyssey and Sophocles' Oedipus Rex and Antigone. Why? Because the works of Greek and Roman scholarship have been the foundations of a liberal arts education ever since the Renaissance. Why? Because the Renaissance scholars saw the ancient Greeks and Romans as models of virtue. Virtue is moral excellence, what the Greeks called arete. Last week I saw your production of the Odyssey. My congratulations to all who were involved in that production. Production crew, cast, lighting, sound. Dr. Priest has a great voice. He's going to take well in my place. The Odyssey. Now there's a real celebration of Machiavellianism. Talk about ends justifying means to the end. There's deceit, deception, lying, weakness of character, and murder. All the trappings of a great adventure story or a great soap opera. Of course, the gods themselves are as Machiavellian as are the mortals. Athena is Odysseus' protector, counseling him on how to be virtuous or deceptive, intervening to save him when the chips are down. Poseidon avenges Odysseus' blinding of Polyphemus the Cyclops by condemning him to 10 years at sea. What Homer doesn't tell you is that Poseidon had a long-standing grudge against Athena for having lost naming rights to a certain Greek city. It's Athens, isn't it? Not Pisidian. That would make any self-respecting god vengeful. But the Odyssey is set on the background of the virtues of marital and filial love, of faithfulness and loyalty and courage. In Odysseus, Penelope, and Telemachus, we see some degree of moral excellence, that greater good, that arete. And in the end, good triumphs over bad. Machiavelli read the Odyssey probably at the same age as you are now. He admired virtue. It should be the standard upon which humans, as rational beings, should conduct their lives and govern themselves. In other words, we should all live lives of moral excellence, justice, and honor. But because of the flaws in human nature, as the ancient Greek writers so ably demonstrated, we cannot always do this all the time. This is the dilemma we all face. Our virtue is always being challenged by other factors in our lives. We live in a competitive world. Success is an important reality. Getting good grades, getting into college, finding a job, holding a job. These are among the challenges we face, and the pressures are indeed intense. It's easy to be tempted to cut corners, to cheat, to lie, to deceive in order to achieve a desired goal. Therefore, we need frequently to remind ourselves and be reminded that there is that greater good and direct ourselves accordingly as best we can. This we do through shared sets of values. Perhaps the most important of these shared values here at seminary is honor. Earlier this year and again last week, you all participated in an assembly centered on honor. Our honor code is both academic and social, and I say our because I still feel I'm very much part of this place. It is one of the features of this school that makes STEM exceptional and admirable. Academic honor requires that we respect the intellectual and artistic property of others. We are expected to be honest in our learning, to cite the sources when drawing upon the work of others, to complete assignments on our own when so specified. When we take tests and quizzes, we are expected to write out and sign a statement pledging that we have been honest. The honor statement is much more than just a bunch of words that must be written in the correct order, wherein neither and receive must be spelled correctly. It is, of course, that. But once we sign our name to it, then it becomes us. Our signature is more than just a name. By writing our name and signing the honor statement, we are affirming that we are honorable. It is a heavy responsibility. It is a responsibility that we should be proud to bear because it says we are trustworthy. Social honor requires consideration for others and their property, honesty in all matters, and courtesy and respect for differences. Essentially, SEM is a community based on trust and respect for each other. It's a place where we can feel secure in the knowledge that our persons and possessions are safe. Our personal and physical well-being are valued. Our voices are heard. Our differences are respected. Our efforts are appreciated to the same degree as are our accomplishments. Honesty is cherished. If there is anyone in this room who does not see these as part of the greater good that is SEM, then perhaps you haven't been here long enough to understand what an extraordinary place this is. Living by honor is not always easy. It requires dedication, commitment, demonstration, and occasional reinforcement. Not only are we responsible for our personal honor, we're also responsible for preserving the integrity of honor within the school community. If we see someone in violation of the honor code, it is our personal responsibility to address it directly by talking with that person and/or reporting the infraction to a teacher or administrator. It is much easier to pretend not to have seen the infraction than it is to confront it. This then poses a moral challenge to our own personal integrity. We have all signed a public affirmation of our commitment to live by honor. There it is, right there in front of you. Those are your signatures on that board. Now, how do I bring this back to Machiavelli? Again, awkwardly. As I said earlier, Machiavelli, as the product of Renaissance scholarship, admired virtue. He genuinely believed humans should be morally excellent, just, and honorable. He would have liked SEM, although he would be amazed that such education was available to women. After all, he was from the Renaissance and traditionally patriarchal in his thinking. Still, he would have admired SEM's commitment to such values as academic honesty and mutual respect and support. So what is the point of my remarks this morning? Honor and moral excellence matter, even in a world wherein we are measured by results. It is important that we understand that the road of life has many pitfalls, obstacles, detours, and seeming dead ends. But personal integrity enables us to understand ourselves and to direct our lives in meeting these pitfalls. For 5 years back in the 1980s, I was at the Hathaway Brown School in Ohio. Like SEM, Hathaway Brown is an all-girls college preparatory school, and Hathaway Brown has a wonderful school motto, in Latin, of course. That should be the motto of every school. We learn not for school, but for life. We learn not for school, but for life. Life isn't always going to hold us accountable for the subjects we studied in school, unless, of course, it's Schooley's lesson on Machiavelli. But it is going to hold us accountable for how we conduct ourselves as human beings. The commitment to moral excellence through honor that we make here at SEM will last for our entire life. It will, as our alma mater reminds us, lift us to better things, to worthy living. Thank you.